Nearly 200 legislators did not attend the debate, which also saw Parliamentary Speaker Rebecca Kadaga skip the House so her Deputy Jacob Oulanya could superintend over the final voting. There have been questions in the mass media about whether the oil and gas resource will indeed be a blessing or actually a curse to the nation. A new report by Makerere University's Refugee Law Project says there are rising tensions and have been clashes in the Alberton Graben where the oil is to be mined. Incoming ethnic groups have been accused of taking over large tracts of land, even though government says they are fully in control and no one will be deprived of their legally owned property. The government says it is keen to see to it that the Ugandan people get their full benefit of the oil resource, now estimated at 3.5 billion barrels, enough to bring in billions of dollars each year for up to 30 years. More exploration is going on. Now, there are different ways in which the average Ugandan can benefit from this resource. And tonight on Spectrum, we talk to the experts working deep within the industry to see just how this is actually playing out. Our guest tonight, Mr. Bozith Abeinomugisha, Acting Principal Geologist in the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development. You're most welcome, Mr. Abeinomugisha.
Thank you, Edmond, and good evening, listeners.
We're also joined by Mr. Kabuye, Legal Officer in the Petroleum Exploration and Production Department in the same ministry. You're most welcome, Mr. Kabuye.
Thank you, Edmond, and good evening, listeners.
We're also joined by Mr. Otoa, Executive Director of the Great Lakes Public Affairs Organization, which specializes in oil governance and human rights and democracy. You're most welcome, Mr. Otoa.
Thank you very much, Edmond.
Bozith, could you tell us what the latest news is in the development of the oil and gas resource?
Yes, Edmond, as you have rightly indicated, our resources, the Ugandan resources, because the resource belongs to all Ugandans, is now estimated at 3.5 billion barrels of crude in place, and we estimate to recover about 1 billion barrels. Government, through the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development, is moving fast to put in place a refinery. As already indicated to many Ugandans, we are in the process of the settlement of the affected people in Kabuye, in Hoima, after which construction will commence. And we expect that the oil produced in the Alberton Graben will benefit Ugandans through value addition before any export can be considered.
And broadly, how will you, of course, we'll later try to understand the, the processes and details, but how will the average Ugandan benefit, broadly speaking?
Thank you, Edmond. That's a very important question. I have, for the many fora that I have participated in, always said that the large chunk of money for the petroleum industry is in service provision. Very many people think, and contrary to reality, that the money is in royalties, money is in taxes. But if you look at countries that have benefited from the oil resource, it is those countries that trained their citizens, that educated their people to participate in the industry and provide services. I'm not saying that there are no money in royalties, that there are no money in taxes. They are, but the large chunk of money is in service provision. And therefore, Ugandans must embrace themselves to participate in the service provision. And that's what the bill that was passed recently was emphasizing. Ugandans participating in service provision to the oil sector.
Mr. Kabuye, would you say this information is publicly available?
Yes, of course. What I can say is, first and foremost, the Petroleum Exploration and Production Department and the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development have websites, and these websites are loaded with a lot of information. As you may be aware, we carried out a study to focus on this area, and the results and findings of this study are available on our website, the PEPD website. You'll allow me to use that short form of PEPD for Petroleum Exploration and Production Department during the show. But then again, I guess there's, having launched a new communication strategy, I believe a lot more can be done to reach out to Ugandans. And for instance, what we're doing right now is part and parcel of that process. There's always room for improvement, and we hope we could do more And that's what I can say at this moment.
And broadly, what are the sectors that people need to get ready for in this regard?
Well, in the sector, if I could say briefly, when we talk about national content, we're talking about service provision, we're talking about provision of goods, we're talking about employment in the sector, we are talking about training in this sector, we are also talking about technology transfer in this sector. So there's a multitude of scenarios where Ugandans could benefit, and people shouldn't just look at going to school to study oil and gas in one either oil and gas law or geology or geophysics or palynology or whatever.
What is palynology? Never heard of that word.
Let the scientists take over.
Very briefly, then we'll go to
Palynology is the study of the plants, basically the pollens, especially to determine the age. When we talk of the petroleum generation, it was not generated yesterday, but has been buried there, especially the source has been buried there and maturing for a long time, millions of years. And palynology is a study to determine what age
the oil is.
Source rock, for example, the oil is, the other rocks that have generated the hydrocarbons are. So the study of determining the age of such rocks is what's called palynology. But I wanted to come in on the employment.
Yes.
You asked my colleague here
Briefly, yes.
and highlight some of the opportunities that Ugandans have participated in. When we say Ugandans will benefit, we are not saying they should benefit in the future. Some Ugandans have started benefiting before even the oil comes to the surface and will continue to benefit. That's why we are saying Ugandans should brace themselves now to start taking these opportunities. For example, employment. The service provision, the service providing companies, some of them big companies like Shurumbaje for wire and logging, like Beggar Hughes, and others are employing about 116 Ugandans in the service provision sector. And these are growing numbers. Some of the employment is not only casual laborer, but some of them at higher level, at managerial level. There are about 3-4 who are at manager level. And that's good for Ugandans who are training. The other service is transportation, including freight forwarding, and the other in-country transport services. The other sector where Ugandans have participated in is civil works. There are a lot of civil works, upgrading these roads, making the drilling pads where the rigs are standing. There is a lot of civil work that's involved and involves money. Some Ugandans are employed here and are taking, getting money through this. The other one, which many Ugandans have not taken interest in, but which could benefit Ugandans, is waste management. A lot of waste is, when you went there, is containerized on these sites.
Yes.
These people who have experience in waste management could come up with proposals and
buy it and go and
yes,
that can be a big area.
A big area and get money. The other one where Ugandans are benefiting is camp management. There are some foreign companies who are managing camps, yes, but there are also Ugandan companies who are managing the camps. And we think Ugandans are capable of taking up these camps, and we say no to foreigners coming to manage the camps in Uganda. The other one is security services.
Yes.
There are companies that are providing security, especially for the well pads and for the workers that are down there. Some of them are Ugandan companies, and they are already getting money. Environmental services, EIAs, audit reports, and all the other environmental details that come with this are also being done by Ugandans. Actually, we have now insisted that environmental studies should be done purely by Ugandans because this is where we have capacity, and therefore we should not bring foreigners. There are other services. We have put some of these documents on our website. Those who are interested can go on our website and see which services are able to be provided, and then they brace themselves on how they should get in.
All right. we'll go into more detail on that point specifically later. Well, listeners, this is Petroleum Radio, and tonight, how will the Ugandan people benefit from the exploitation of the oil and gas resource? Our guests tonight, Mr. Bozith Abeinomugisha, Acting Principal Geologist in the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development, Mr. Isaac Kabuye, Legal Officer in the Petroleum Exploration and Production Department, and Mr. Tony Otoa, Executive Director, Geologist Public Affairs, organization which specializes in oil governance, human rights, and democracy. Mr. Otoa, are you happy with the things that are going here?
Of course not. I'm actually a little bit disheartened when I hear this gentleman from the ministry talking about people going to their websites. We know that the highest volume of people who are going to be affected, or who are already being affected by a lot of these oil developments, do not have access to these websites. So I think the government has, in so much of a way, failed to filter a lot of this information to the people who actually need it. So I think that is one thing that I just wanted to start off with. But in regard to the legal aspects and the recent developments, I must say that it was, Friday was one of the saddest days for any sane Ugandan in regard to how these oil issues were deliberated. Because for one, you had members of parliament who had an opportunity to create an avenue for oversight in a sector that we know is very tight. First and foremost, there's no transparency in this sector. Uganda is not party to the EI Extractives Industry Transparency Initiative. Uganda is not part of Publish What You Pay. We're not visibly there.
Yes.
So by having a lot of that secrecy within such a sector, and having power entrusted into one minister, who we all know is always controlled by one person, the big man, that creates a scenario where the need for oversight is going to be overlooked, and the average Ugandan will again not be able to access this sector. The two gentlemen talked about how Ugandans are benefiting from this sector at the moment, but truth be told, a lot of the Ugandans who have the capacity and have been trying to get into this sector have failed over time. We have Bemuga, who had won an amazing contract to, provide all this machinery to Talo. What happened? His contract was terminated. He actually has it now as a legal issue outstanding. We have...
Well, Bemuga, let's get the facts. I think they resolved it with Talo. They issued a joint statement eventually.
Yes.
Exactly. But that is just one of the incidents, because you're not looking at a big company having such an issue. Where does your average Ugandan service provider fit in? Now, the government has the onus to improve on the quality of its service providers. That is something that we know is something that the government can do. Quality within the oil sector, as we all know, the oil companies desire certain standards. This is something that the government can enhance and provide for the average Ugandan service provider to be able to participate within this sector. But as long as that is not a provision, as long as that is not in perspective, we have a problem. We have a problem where, again, you have the foreign companies overstepping the local companies in regard to service provision. So I think that is something that we need to look at seriously, and I think something that we really have to be honest about, even at the ministry level, gentlemen.
Perhaps before we move forward, talk to us about the scenario where the PAU, the Petroleum Authority of Uganda, would oversee the industry, giving contracts rather than having it under the minister.
Well, you see, by having it by having it within the Petroleum Authority, you definitely have at least the ability for oversight, either through Parliament, because of course Parliament would be part of these decision makings, and that was actually one of the ideas that was being floated. And in so much of the way, a lot of these issues would have, a way in which they're critically looked at and critically analyzed, and and then actions taken based on what is best for Ugandans. By putting it within the docket of just one minister, we all know that so many decisions have gone wrong in this country because of just one person in charge. So I think it's very important to realize that that oversight role is very necessary, it's very important, and it is something that we miss out on.
Mr. Kabuye, before we talk about the controversy of the minister versus the PAU, let's talk about the other technical matters. Are you people really bothered about passing information down to the people at the grassroots, putting it on the website? Sometimes the internet doesn't even work.
Of course we are. Of course we are. I can tell you that we have people on the ground. If you cared at all to talk to anyone in these areas that are directly affected by exploration, development, and eventually production as we go on, you would find that they're very informed. We have been on the ground, we have talked.
Can I just interject, because I don't think that is right.
Let's hear him out.
Well,
Let's hear you. Go on.
If you could give me a chance to state my position.
Yes.
We have been on the ground for quite a while. We have held community meetings. We have talked to the leaders in the area. We have talked to the area MPs. We have talked to the people who are going to be affected. There's no way you can carry out these massive projects. You know how land is, for instance. You can't, our settlement action plan focuses initially on educating the people on the changes that are coming towards them. And the consultant on the ground, one of the issues that he had to deal with, for instance, was to take these families through the options that would be available.
Fair enough, Mr. Kabuye. You talk about RAP,
yes,
which is only a small component.
He forced me into talking about some of the details of what we're doing. But my point initially was that we have been on the ground, and if someone cared to find out, we have been on the ground, and we are continuing to talk to Ugandans about all aspects of the sector, and not just resettlement or anything of the sort, about the entire sector. Yes.
Mr. Abeinomugisha, let's talk about the expertise. We have the Chigumba Petroleum Institute. What kind of people does it train? And where else do people get expertise to get ready for it?
Chigumba Petroleum Institute trains the artisans, the people at the artisanal level, the blue-collar jobs. Because if you notice in the petroleum industry, that's the largest chunk of the jobs that are created. If you look at the white-collar jobs, you may have 1 or 2 geologists, and that's all. But those people who are lifting pipes, who are welding, who are doing this kind of jobs, these are the majority of the people that will be employed. And that's why Chigumba is training those people. But I hope you're also aware that Makerere started a course for the white-collar jobs. And this year, they have started the master's program in petroleum geoscience. And we hope the engineering section will also soon start a master's program to take care of the white-collar jobs. So, as far as education is concerned, I think we are progressing well to train, at least to give the basic skills to Ugandans to be able to take on the industry and do further training after getting the basics. But I wanted to come back to communication, as my colleague was saying. We have engaged the grassroots people. I have participated personally in mobilizing the local people in those areas, even before drilling started. When you hear these people talking, they think petroleum started yesterday. In 2006, when the discoveries were made. In 2004-05, I was in Kaisotonia talking to the local people, the LCs, mobilizing them to support the seismic operations. Before drilling starts, we went to mobilize the people to support drilling operations. We have talked to these people. Now we have monthly radio talk shows with the companies in Oima, in Masidi, in Chivale, now in Nebi, where drilling is going on. The problem we have with civil society is that they go down there to spread negative propaganda. When we go, we first have to dispel the propaganda that they have sown down there.
To detoxify.
Why don't they mobilize the people for development? Why do they go to talk about the Niger Delta, where things have gone wrong, everywhere in the world where things have gone wrong, not those that have done it well, and educate the people on which opportunities are available, which opportunities they can take? I have not had any civil society do that.
Easier to explain.
I think that's a very, very misplaced argument, because one, what is negative propaganda? If telling the people about the negatives of oil is negative propaganda, then I think we have a problem. Because one, it is actually very, very true that...
but he says you don't talk to the people about the opportunities available.
One thing that the gentleman here forgetting is that civil society is the most visible stakeholder in the oil regions as of to date. We are actually there, I believe, more than the ministry people.
But you have not done your duty.
Our duty? I don't know what he would want our duty to be, but I believe that our duty, one, is to inform the people about what's going on.
About the negatives and not the positives.
No. Empower the people. I mean, it's very, very true. Today, civil society has kind of like ignored its primary constituency, who are the people, and we've tended to focus more at policy level. That is a fact. But that does not negate the fact that we are very visibly down in the communities. We are helping the communities in a lot of their social activities, economic activities that can empower them, because right now you have issues of a change of livelihoods. You have people who have actually moved away from, for example, the fishing communities, moving further inland, readjusting them into the new life that they're going to be positioned in for a longer time. This is something that has been ongoing. I think civil society has done very much, and what now we have to do is to spend more time empowering the people with the ability for them to know what they have as theirs, empowering them to demand, empowering them to question, empowering them to have a voice that can actually be a substitute for a lot of the things that are ongoing.
So when you look at your activity budget, you spend more money on advocacy rather than education, or you don't think that's a big deal for you?
Well, I personally can't say that, because I do not go into all organizations' budgets to actually look at how much money they spend on whatever activities. But I would like to say that, well, at GLPA, our focus is primarily on the people, raising awareness, giving the people.
Well, you could teach them about what opportunities are available.
Exactly, that is.
If, as you say, the minister is not doing it, would that not interest you?
Of course it is, and it is something I believe that civil society has been doing over time. So it is something that
you believe, or you are sure that
I know, but by believing, I know.
No.
You see, this is the disconnect that we always have.
Yes.
One where the government tends to see civil society as an enemy. But I think the need to look at this oil sector in a tripartite way, looking at the oil companies in relationship with the government and civil society as the partner of the other stakeholders, we would have this sector really working favorably well for most of the Ugandans. And that is something that the government is failing to realize.
This is Petroleum Radio, and we'll be back after this short break. To stay with us.
Discover the new invigorating taste of Red Vodka Lemon. Red Vodka Lemon. Reinvent the night. Not for sale to persons under 18.
One in that corner.
Excuse me, guys. Let me through, please.
Yes.
Check the skirt. Goodness, dude, what are you doing? Get real. Just move. Just what? Get a beat. Man, what are you doing bringing a cow into the sitting room? It's just for when I want milk. Just what? Just please move. Let it come and sit here.
So look at this guy. You cannot keep a cow in your home, but you can get the freshness of its milk straight from the farm into your home. Get fresh dairy milk for freshness straight from the farm every day. Fresh Diary, so fresh.
Welcome to the MTN Service Center, sir.
Hey.
How can I help you?
We are here to buy MTN SIM cards.
Okay.
Meet my wife and my daughter and my son. This is my father, my mother and my cousin Sylvia.
Oh, wow, that's great.
Hey, I need even for my auntie-piece. Hey, come close, auntie-piece. Behind her is my mechanic and my newspaper vendor and my boss and pastor.
Okay, sir.
This Christmas, buy an MTN SIM card to win free airtime for a year. Dial star 188 hash to win. 250 winners will immediately be notified on SMS each day. Win free airtime for a year with MTN this Christmas. Terms and conditions apply.
And of course there is my brother, my electrician, my plumber, and my baba's best friend's girlfriend.
MTN, everywhere you go. Ça va, hello. My name is Kogole Andemina, very serious Congolese tailor. People see me when they want to look good. People leave my shop looking like superstars of TV. But however much I make you look beautiful or even sexy like me, I cannot change the person inside, the real you. Kind of like Uganda Uganda Waraji. It has this beautiful look, but inside they have maintained the same old spirit that we know. The same old spirit we have known for many years in a new suit. New look. Oh, you need to try it.
Enjoy the new look Uganda Waraji. The same Ugandan spirit with a new look. Uganda Waraji. Same spirit, new look. Excessive consumption of alcohol is harmful to your health. Not for sale to persons under 18 years. Please drink responsibly. Spectrum on Radio 1 FM 90.
Welcome back on Spectrum tonight. How will the Ugandan people benefit from the exploitation of the oil and gas resource? Our guests tonight, Mr. Bozith Abeinomugisha, Acting Principal Geologist in the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development, Mr. Isaac Kabuye, Legal Officer in the Petroleum Exploration and Production Department in the same ministry, and Mr. Otoa Executive Director of Great Lakes Public Affairs Organization, which specializes in oil governance, human rights, and democracy issues. You will be able to call in and contribute to this discussion at some stage. Mr. Abeinomugisha, there were reports at some stage that Ugandan workers could not do a good welding job. They had to be flown in on air-conditioned planes. So what are we going to do about that?
Who were flown on air-conditioned planes?
For welders to come and, with their overalls so they can weld metals in the oil place. Is that true or not?
Edmond, as you know, the oil industry is a high technology industry. And the workers who work in this industry are certified to ensure that the standards of the industry are maintained. Now, when the industry was beginning here, as I have always indicated, we didn't have trained, skilled manpower. But we are building that critical manpower. The manpower that started the industry that are taking on these critical roles are brought from outside, because
including the welders. We don't have good welders.
We don't have that manpower. We don't have the welders. The welders we have are not certified welders.
They can do gas and other
even the crane drivers
in Kabuye.
Even the crane drivers were being imported from Kenya because we didn't have certified crane drivers. We don't have certified welders in Kabuye. Probably what we need is to put up an institution in Kabuye, get someone
like
train these welders, to train these welders, give them certification that's required, and then they are employed by the industry. And that was the whole purpose of the Petroleum Institute in Kigumba.
But if I may add on to what my colleague is saying,
yes,
when we talk about welding, and it's not just a matter of certification. It's not just a matter of going to Kabuye, picking up someone and certifying them, and then bringing them to the sector. The level of skill and technique
be sophisticated
required to weld a pipeline that is going to last 25 years or more without any leakage is far more complex.
You must know what you're doing.
You must know what you're doing. It's not just corner beating with a gate and it collapses. That's from your ankle. Yeah, it's not just working on a gate that's going to collapse in 2 years. No, we need to be clear on that.
There's not enough qualified people. I mean, if you don't have welders, what are we going to do in the other sectors?
Well, what I can say about that, Edmond, is that the government has embarked on a long process of training, first of all, its employees. And this is not just in the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development. No, we are training people in Uganda Revenue Authority, in Ministry of Finance, that is. We are training people in Ministry of Justice to be able to handle the legal aspects of the sector and all the other relevant, NEMA, for instance, environmental aspects, all the other ministries that directly linking to what we're doing, the work we're taking forward. So that is one aspect. But also, these companies, in the agreements that they reach with government, they are required to put aside some money during specific intervals, which money is also taken back into training Ugandans to be able to acquire a certain level of skill in this sector. But also, as Mr. Bozith was saying earlier, if you look at the percentages of these companies now, the Ugandans they employ, you'll find, for instance, Tallow is employing 80% Ugandans. Tallow oil.
The British company.
Yes. Sinok will be about 70% of all the employees they have are Ugandans. Same with Total, with about 60%. But more importantly, the argument that is coming out, that I've heard over and over again, is that these people who are working for these oil companies for now are doing the lowly, the lowly jobs. But that's not true.
I don't have some.
Mr. Mogero is at the helm of Tallow as we speak.
He's country manager or something.
Yes, and there are many other Ugandans in the system that are preparing, that are learning, even from the few expatriates that are on the ground. And we expect that over time, these people are going to take over and lead in their different areas of operation.
Do you have a database of available jobs, parallel against database of qualified people? Is that something you think about or doing?
Yes. In terms of jobs employment, the government requires that the oil companies submit the manpower requirement, annual manpower requirement, and it's something that all the companies do. So we know what is the manpower requirement for each company for each particular year, and therefore we have to tailor the training programs towards that. But we also require the companies to train the manpower that's required to fill that gap. One other thing that we have not talked about is that we also require them to have a nationalization plan. If you have a geoscientist, for example, experienced geoscientist, how long is it going to take you to train a Ugandan to replace this guy? If you tell us it's 5 years, then we shall give this guy a work permit for 5 years. And if 5 years expire, then we shall ask you, you told us you will replace this guy in 5 years.
He has to go.
His permit has expired, he has to go. So each company has submitted a nationalization plan, which nationalization plans we have as a ministry.
Mr. Otoa, is it fair to demand that these companies employ Ugandans? They might get a welder who does another job.
First of all, it's very important. It's very important to realize two things. One, Ugandans at this point are just learning about this sector. It's a very new sector, so definitely the expertise is lacking. And two, it's a sector that everyone seems to be so excited about. But again, it's very important to also caution a lot of Ugandans to try and not really focus their energies on this one sector, because it is just one of the many sectors.
They should continue growing maize.
I would actually encourage the majority to grow maize and avocados to service this amazing sector, because at the end of the day, this is a sector that won't last for over 40 to 50 years. It's going to die very soon.
Most people will be dead by that time, so they won't be thinking about
exactly, but you can imagine how many people are positioning their children to go through that education system. So I'm just simply saying that we need to think about dealing with expectations. And what the government has failed to do in the oil sector or in all of these oil developments is dealing with expectations. So people are thinking that this sector is so enormous, which if you compared it to amazing oil producing countries like, for example, Saudi Arabia, Venezuela, or even just say Angola, this is a very tiny oil barrel we're talking about. So in terms of how many Ugandans can actually benefit from it, very few. So we need to now position ourselves and think about enhancing other sectors to feed into this amazing sector, and also have the government really deal with that issue of expectations, because expectations are going to be one of the major letdowns, and we all know what happens when people expect so much and get so little.
You get caught in a bubble.
Mistrust comes in, and we all know what has been going on, for example, in the last 1 month, and it's still ongoing with all the corruption scandals. We have that situation that might end up engulfing this sector and this country. We wouldn't want to see that.
Talking about expectations, a Harvard professor, Venezuelan man, was here last week, and he told us, draw some parallels. Our oil is going to be 1/200th of, at the peak, 1/200th of what Norway has. It's going to be 1/70th of what Venezuela has, 1/20th of what Nigeria has. So it's not really that big thing. It's not such a big. We'll be getting maybe about $2 billion a year.
Exactly.
Libya got $30 billion in 7 months. the first 7 months of this year. So we really are going to be a small operator. Let's talk about something else. Mr. Abeinomugisha, when will the first oil drop actually flow?
Actually, I'm very happy that you know these things. My only frustration is that you are not disseminating the information, especially the civil service.
For a small fee, we can arrange that.
If this information you know, you will disseminate it to the people, I would have been a very happy man. It's very good, you know this information, and you are not doing your duty.
No, we are doing our duty.
The only thing you do is tell people what the government has done wrong.
Go on. When is the first oil going to show up?
Edmond, the first oil will show up when the critical infrastructure that's required for development has been put in place.
Shall we still be alive?
People have compared Uganda with Ghana to say Ghana discovered oil at the same time with Uganda proceeded and started production in 3 years.
3.5
Ghana is offshore. You just bring an FSPO and put it on the...
They're next to the ocean, basically.
On the ocean, produce, put in the vessel, transport to the US or everywhere, wherever you want to export, and get your money. That's not the same situation with Uganda. Uganda is landlocked. You have to put in place the infrastructure that's required. The refinery, the pipelines, the processing facilities, and until that critical infrastructure is in place, we cannot talk of development. The sooner we start on this infrastructure, the better, because that will bring forward the production period.
So what are the oil companies doing in the fields at the moment?
There is a lot of work that's going on, the appraisal period, and the appraisal is to define how much oil is contained in those reservoirs underground. You will recall that a few months ago we were talking of 2.5 billion,
yes,
and now we are talking of 3.5 billion. When that was announced, some people started saying, but we have not had any new discovered fields. How did this value go up? Because appraisal has been going on. When you make a discovery with a well, you need to know how far that field extends, and that's what we call appraisal. So until you have delineated that size, you cannot know how much is contained. And once you have delineated all the fields, then you can say with certainty, this is what I have. So the figure you gave at the beginning can either increase or even reduce.
Can go up or down.
You have less. Can go up or down.
Like the markets.
Yes.
But before we had an extra $1 billion barrels discovered, when we still have the 2.5 billion barrels as the working figure, you said 1.1 billion barrels were recoverable. Now we have 3.5 billion, you're still saying 1 billion barrels is recoverable.
We said 30%. 30% is recoverable. And when we had about 2.5 billion barrels, we were saying 800 to 1 billion. 1 billion barrels.
So the recoverable rate is 30%?
The recoverable rate we are looking at is 30%. But that depends upon very many things.
Yes.
Including the type of reservoir that you have, the type of crude that you have, and so on. So, but worldwide, the average recovery factor is 30%. But some of the countries, some of the companies are producing at 7%, 5-7%. That means you leave more than 90% in the ground. So, but as I said, the average is 30%, and that's why we are using 30% to estimate how much is recoverable.
This is Petroleum on Radio 1. You can call in now. Our number is 041-4348-111, 031-226-0390, 031-226-1390. When you call in, please tell us your name and your address, where you're calling from. Spectrum, hello? 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 Good evening, sir. Your name? Hello? You're live on Spectrum. Good evening, sir. Your name? Yes, Peter.
I want to agree with my good friend, Otoa, on the issue of lack of government support to Ugandans who have been prepared, not under the government. So this is a little program by the government to have people in Uganda to take advantage. But in a way, the reports show that it is the next year preparation. People are taking down children for training to Trinidad, to Nigerian countries. That's not fair. Secondly, I want to challenge colleagues from the Ministry of Labor. That we have just prepared the country well. We don't have the national energy research facilities and framework in place. This whole sector is just fall within that framework. It has not been prepared. This institute at the facility is just really a knee-jerk reaction.
Okay, Spectrum, hello? Yes, Max.
You say I want to talk about the role of the informal sector in this equation of oil. Some days back, we had a very fantastic documentary like this, which shocked the world. The government of Nigeria has vested Nigeria where the Obani use the local traditional methods to refine crude oil using poor methods, and they could develop a resource with petrol, diesel, and paraffin locally. But unfortunately, what the government did of Nigeria, it harassed these young men who were trying to utilize their own skills and termed them as dealing in the black market. So, how can we develop measures that such scenarios don't occur in Ghana?
Spectrum, hello? Good evening, your name?
My name is Edmond. I want to thank you and the activity in the studio. I am just disappointed that the fact that is the ministry and the civil society, instead of preparing people services, but the meeting now going around the country is preparing people negatively. Millions of people start talking about cars and so on. It creates a lot of fear among people. Without really get wrong. It's just, some of the people living like this, that if you get rich, then things will come and start to do stuff with you. So kind of attitude should be changed.
Spectrum, hello? Hello? Okay, let's get back to the CEO. Mr. Tony Otoa, you're preparing the people negatively rather than positively. Why?
I think that is a misconception because, one, when you're building your house...
Okay, someone just came through. Spectrum, hello? Hello? Yes? Spectrum, hello?
Hello, how are you?
Very well, thanks. Your name?
Good question. I believe in preparing the first time again by going to and going to that
All right, let's Spectrum, hello, or final caller. Hello? Okay, let's come back here right now. Tony Otoa.
Yeah, I think it's very important to realize one thing. We know the country that we live in, and I think it's not preparing people negatively, because if you're building a house in a neighborhood that you know has a lot of thugs and bandits, you'll definitely build a wall. And of course, your LC would warn you about some of the incidents that probably happened. Now, in this case, that bad neighborhood is a corrupt Uganda. And we are trying...
Why do you make such a blanket statement? We have a lot of clean people in government.
We have a lot of clean people in the government, but you don't need to read the newspapers to actually know the truth. But just to go on, we are looking at empowering the people by them knowing what country, first of all, what situation is in the country right now, and what works out best for them. Transparency is a very, very good idea. The need for this country to take on initiatives like the Extractives Industries Transparency Initiative, EITI, is important. The need for the sector to be as open as much as it can is very crucial. So, of course, it is not scaring people. It is not preparing people in a wrong way, but it's making people realize that they need to actually be 2 steps ahead in trying to avert any negatives.
You need to sleep with one eye open.
Exactly.
Mr. Abeinomugisha, talk to us about your own responses.
Yes.
Lack of government support. You're not preparing the people. Like, Peter was saying some children are being taken away for training. You've not invested in energy research.
Edmond, we shall talk about the issue of EITI and publish what you pay later on, because we think government is progressing well. To join these institutions, you don't wake up one day and say, I have become a member of EITI. We need to engage my brother here at another forum and discuss these issues. But on the questions that have been asked, I want to thank the callers for these very wonderful questions and encourage them to take the opportunities seriously, because we are here talking, and it's very good that these ones who are asking have access to what we are saying. They are getting all of this information. It would be unfortunate if they sit back and they don't plan to participate in the sector. There is one who asked, I think the first one, there is a lack of government support to Ugandans to participate in the sector. I think there is a lot of support. One, there is information that's going out to give which services Ugandans can take part in. There are a lot of trainings that are going on, and we are now putting in place a strategy on how Ugandans in general can be assisted to participate in the sector. But what I must say is, and basing on the arguments, is that we have informed the companies and we have made it very clear, as from the agreement, that they can only employ foreigners, they can only get services from foreigners where there is no qualified Ugandan. And we have gone ahead to participate in the evaluation of their employment records. We have gone ahead to evaluate the tenders they have submitted to see that they are not qualified Ugandans where they are bringing in foreigners. This is very important, because if they advertise here in Uganda and we look at what they have got, we are all convinced that there is no Ugandan, then they can bring a foreigner. But if there is a Ugandan, then let them employ Ugandan. This is very important for Ugandans, and this is at the moment where we are supporting them. But I know we need to do more in terms of training, in terms of building capacity, because the skills are very low, and this is where we are going. The negative propaganda, my friend here has answered it, but I would be very happy if civil society organizations can go and give people the negative aspects of the oil, but also talk about the positive aspects and on how they can benefit. Actually, I am already happy with some of the organizations, not all, civil society organizations, name them. And some of the leaders are my friends. I will not name them, because I have interacted with them on several occasions, and they have already taken up some of these ideas and educating people on how they can benefit. We would all be very grateful if we work together, civil society, government, because we are working for the same people.
Mr. Kabuye.
Just to add on what Mr. Bozith has been saying, on the efforts that the government is making, I think those of you who have been following the press, you noticed that not a while ago, a group of Ugandan students went through a scholarship interview, and that was provided by Chalo. And these people are currently studying abroad in different universities, Aberdeen, Dundee, in oil and gas matters. Those of you who have been following these press reports. Now, someone might look at it and say, oh, it's just Talo, but these are deliberate efforts by the government of Uganda to make sure that Ugandans are trained. And the scholarship scheme paid due attention to the people in the region. If say there were 20 in all, 6 positions were dedicated
to the Banyoro,
to the people in the regions.
How do you tell if the man is a Banyoro or not? Let me first finish.
This money could be paid by the company now, but Ugandans must know that all this is recoverable costs, and it is a direct, effort by the government of Uganda to make sure that Ugandans move.
Well, we'll get that, but just before we lose the point here, EITIP, publish what you pay. How far have we gone?
We can't do that without a legal regime.
That's very important. You have first put your house in order before you go into this.
And we started doing that on Friday last week in Parliament. Mr. Otoa.
Well, I was just simply saying, for example, this gentleman talking about the Banyoro being the highest bulk of people who are getting these scholarships. One of the callers actually
said 6 out of 20.
Yeah, one of the callers actually had a problem with that, because I think that the way we need to be discussing these all issues is in a very nationalistic manner. Well, it's understandable that there's massive oil in Banyoro, there's massive oil in Amuru, but we need to give it a country context, you see.
And we did.
But you see, this is the thing. Now, we're we're talking about who benefits most. The Banyoro always come in, or we need to.
Or you prefer to get people from other places.
Exactly. It should be nationalistic as much as possible.
All right. Maybe those are issues they'll be looking at. But maybe before we go, Mr. Abeinomugisha, in your own view, from your heart of hearts, is this going to be a blessing or a curse? Somebody spoke about the Ogoni people and Nigeria.
It's going to be a blessing, and it would be unfortunate for these people who are listening to us if they are the least to benefit from the sector. Those who are listening should take a keen interest and plan and see how the oil is going.
Their pocket. They should position themselves. They should position themselves. The other tells me nearby. Check them as well. Well, thank you very much.